Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with more Batgirl. After facing assassins and forging friendships, feeling loss of skills and loss of life, Cassandra Cain works herself sick, literally, to prepare herself for the impending fight with noted martial artist Lady Shiva. We're mere issues away, so let's see if this confrontation makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. Issue number 22 has a cover that looks like any panel throughout the series. Cass whooping a bunch of goons, but this one has the caption, Crunch Time. Is she trying to fill a quota for kicking goons in the face, or is she going on a candy bar run? Personally, I could go either way. Ooh, maybe both. We begin with a guy stepping out of his cabin with a bunch of unconscious goons on the lawn. He's expecting Batman, but that's not quite the one breaking his hand. Jump ahead a year and a half, and his hand is scarred, and he still can't pull a trigger. He's talking to a pricey assassin in shadow, saying he wants the freak dead, and the killer wants his payment up front before he starts producing a corpse. Meanwhile in Gotham, Batgirl readies a batarang to throw at a young man pointing a weapon at bats, after a couple of his buddies have already been beaten. Fortunately, he listens to the Dark Knight, and relinquishes his weapon without further incident. And for someone that's often keen on face-punching, Cassie seems pretty happy about how things turn out. Oracle calls, needing to show Batman something. As much as I enjoy Bats knocking heads of this criminal or that, every once in a while it's nice to see someone realize they're in over their head and just call it quits rather than lose even worse. But hopefully someone gets punched in the face in this issue. At the clock tower, Babs has a hollow screen of David Cain's file up, saying a feed started playing 10 minutes ago from a nuclear weapons facility. That's when she notices Cass is tagged along, and now things start to get awkward. The feed started with David getting loaded in the control room and telling Bats to get his wings in gear before he gets sloshed enough to let his inner Dee take the helm. Batgirl attempts to stop him, but the boss says no. It may well be a trap, but she shouldn't feel responsible for the man that trained her. For now, she has Gotham to protect.
You stay in the city, while I'll deal with a drunken assassin with access to nukes, all by myself, without calling the Justice League of America. I figure if he launches something, I can scare the missile into submission. I am Batman.
At a hotel, the hired gun is shaking hands with a mustachioed fellow, taking his leave after dropping off a briefcase. And just as a drink order arrives.
A Bloody Mary?
Virgin Mary.
Sorry, Virgin Mary.
I'd say no tip for her, but maybe she'll be lucky if she ends her shift alive. The man goes to his room, opens several cases with weapons, as well as a timer device, and on a 2-pager, he takes aim at Batgirl. Intercut with this is a flashback to her training with Cain, who fires at her while she stands in profile, and considering we've been following her for about 20 issues, I think it's safe to say she dodged it then, just like she does now. Since it was only training back in the day, I'd imagine it would make sense for Cain to have used rubber bullets, but I can't tell if that's what he fired back then. Granted, it's pretty intense either way, but intense has kind of been a running theme in this gal's life, hasn't it? She grapples the source of the attack, but the hitman's already vacated. Returning to Oracle, claiming it was just a slow night, it turns out David resumed his feed about 15 minutes prior, still drinking and now singing Daisy Bell. He doesn't seem to notice a smoke bomb dropped into the room, meaning some military boys are going to take him down. Though, after some gunfire is heard, Cain alone is heard resuming his song. We briefly see the shadowed assassin confirm his money has been transferred, and he takes his leave, then to a gathering of soldiers outside the nuclear facility. Commanding officer states he never ordered any SEALs to go in, and that's when Batman appears, suggesting, ordering, he pull his men back since it's pointy ears that Cain wants. Switching to My Darling Clementine, David looks at the camera as if he knows Cass must be watching, when there's an explosion upon Batman's approach. He seems more or less fine, but Batgirl darts out the window. After a flashback of her being shown the stars and cuddling up to her dad, which is sweet enough of a scene, we see her on top of a spire, unmasked for some reason, as the assassin takes aim and fires. On the final page, the contractor of the hit is reading by the fire as his nearby muscle falls to the ground. He reaches for a gun but is stopped by David Kane. And I guess for some reason he wanted his crest on the other side of his suit. Piece of advice: never hire a man to kill his own daughter.
Yeah, storytelling got a little different here, didn't it? I wouldn't call it non-linear. That's not an appropriate descriptor. I would say it's twisty and misleading, but it doesn't feel quite as solid as previous issues.
The first clue that Kane was the guy hired was that first shot at Batgirl, mirroring her training. 2 instances of the same basic situation played out just the same. That's why the gunman smiled as he escaped. It was David, proud that his kid was as good as ever. And I imagine that the bit with the Virgin Mary, which is basically a Bloody Mary without the vodka, was maybe kind of a misdirect. The video of Kane at the nuke facility could have been pre-recorded, set to play at certain times to give the illusion he was there the whole time, when he was actually in Gotham. It was the perfect way to make sure Batman was out of town. The biggest red herring is this final shot. The backgrounds and the placement of the panels make it seem like he's targeting Cassandra, but then the crime boss's goon fall down go boom, so it stands to reason that's who was being shot. Though it does raise the question of those SEALs that tried to take the room. The commander didn't know anything about it, so were those actors Kane hired for the show, or did he somehow just fake that with some audio recordings?
I think it fits Kane's personality. If he didn't accept the offer, some other assassin might. Maybe he was worried that some other killer could get lucky and actually do in his child, or this was his twisted way of bonding with her. He was fully confident she dodged that bullet, so to him it was just fun and games. But again, he's a little loopy and he's a villain. However, since he was never going to kill Batgirl and he wouldn't want that mob boss to try putting out a hit on her again, well, let's just say that wasn't a water pistol he was putting to the guy's head.
The cover of issue 23 sees the character amongst some rafters, grapnel line in hand. At this time, DC Comics had this cover theme going of having the series title spelled out in the environment somehow. In this case, smoke. We begin with Cass either being taken aback or casting a magic spell, I can't tell. Interesting choice to frame her from the POV of a bomb strapped to a guy's chest. Punching probably won't disarm the weapon, so she calls Oracle while the guy rants about having been fired. As instructed, she knocks the dude out and proceeds to try deactivating the bomb, something she's never done before. And she has less than 30 seconds left.
I guess learning bomb handling was going to start after her first kill. Now don't you wish you stayed in Assassin Homeschool at least one more semester?
And skip to breakfast at Barbara's, where they're talking about the incident and, in particular, Barbara's first bomb, something she came across about a half a year into her caped life. She just guessed which wire to pull, and being back over for her at the time was really more about the rush. After a moment, Cass asks to use the Hollow Room, and Barb's fine with that. She even has some new simulations, including footage of Lady Shiva. As Batgirl goes to train, Oracle makes a call, specifically to Batman, as he's working on some delicate circuitry work.
He's tweaking his PS4 so it'll also play Xbox games. Hey, just because he's rich doesn't mean he wants to buy multiple consoles every generation.
Sure enough, they both know about Cassandra's plans to fight Shiva in just under 2 months, but she hasn't said a word on the matter. Babs wants to call it off, but Batman says that they agreed that facing Wu San is the only way for Batgirl to work past the death wish they both agree she has.
Throughout the series, whenever Batman has acted this way, I've always tried to put it in the context of something a bit more upbeat and positive in keeping with his mission, rather than just face value interpretation. I don't think I can do that here. Cass has a death wish? Let her have a death match with one of the deadliest martial artists on the planet. I'm sure she'll be fine. Maybe get Alfred to let out that mask a bit. It's apparently too tight around your skull, Bruce.
Oracle worries Cass will be overconfident, being 17 and able to take down the majority of the planet and all. As said teenager watches Hollow Shiva destroy some Hollow monks, Pointy Ears figures that with her body reading ability, seeing every detail of her opponent's form, the perfection of her technique, Cassandra is well aware Shiva will win.
Win the death match! See, that's the worrying part, in case you haven't noticed, and I'm beginning to get almost as concerned for you as I am for Cassandra.
In the end, Bruce reasons they haven't likely missed anything. Her reckless behavior, foregoing a private life so as to train obsessively, it all points to guilt. She still thinks of herself as an assassin because she was raised by one. He mentions how difficult a parent's legacy can be, but I question how much that relates, given that his parents were a doctor and a philanthropist, and you became a crime-fighting ninja. As Cass resets the program, sans monks, Oracle thinks there's more to it than guilt, despite what Kane taught her, and we find Bats is still in denial over Cassie's first kill. While BG spars with the hard light Wusan, hey, even looks like she got in a hit, good for her. Batman says that she seemed to understand without explanation why the clan does what they do. She knew the fragility of life and the need to protect it, and that a killer couldn't understand him or the mission like that.
Because you've never encountered a crook that turned over a new leaf when given the opportunity? Because you'd never come across the word regret and didn't think to check it out in a dictionary? Heck, you worked with Plastic Man in the JLA, and he's a career criminal that became a hero. Maybe Batman's just embarrassed that something like this got past him.
Speaking of slipping past, Hollow Shiva's fist slips past Cassie's skull, just as Barbara figures something out. That Batgirl is both a killer, but also just like the Dark Knight. No response as she leaves the Hollow Room and tells Oracle she's okay. But she'd say if she weren't, right? The last page is a splash of her saying, "Sure," as she manages a smile.
Check back in 2015. Then she really won't be okay.
It's not explained how exactly they figured out Cassie's plans to fight Shiva, and I kind of wish it was. How the bomb was disarmed, sure, you can glaze over that because that's not what the story's about, but this whole time her mentors knew she was planning to face one of the world's most lethal adversaries. I'd like to know how they pieced it together. It'd just take one panel. Otherwise, it's a good lead-in to the impending fight, touching on the psychology of the situation and showing that even though she doesn't look like she can win, Cass is still going to fight. Though why doesn't that one strike count as a win for her? Also, we notice that Batman still hasn't come to terms with what she did, even if she was just a child at the time. We'll be skipping issue 24 since it's more directly part of the Bruce Wayne murderer story, which ran across multiple Bat titles at the time.
So that brings us to issue 25, more than a year's worth of build-up. It's been a while since I've read this, and with my thorough dissatisfaction with DC's treatment of this character in recent years, I just want to say that if she does die, I'm gonna put the hurt on someone.
The cover of this extra-sized issue sees our heroine standing in front of a lens flare and a purple gradient background, battered, a little bloody, and her costume torn up, clearly indicating a fight. One where she coincidentally got a Power Girl rip as well. Stay classy, comics. We start off in a room adorned with weapons as one guy dominates in a fight against several opponents, until arrives Lady Shiva. Aw, they made her a Death Destroyer of Worlds banner.
That had to be one awkward checkout at Kinko's.
Cassandra is in her lair, trying to record a farewell message to Oracle, saying she was like a mother to her, but gets too emotional. Weird how she's defensively holding up her hand to the computer. But hey, it could be some kind of biological, instinctual thing, something anyone would do in that situation. She erases that message and records a new one, apologizing to Batman and saying that this was her idea, and he shouldn't blame Shiva.
No, the deathmatch was her idea. She outlined it. You just agreed to it. Maybe that's semantics, but I stand by it.
While atop one of Gotham City's skyscrapers, Cass sees a man in a trench coat look out at the city, then tells him not to jump. He gets so weirded out that he makes a run for it just as she gets a call from Oracle. At the clock tower, she's taken to the Hollow Room and shown a recreation of her first kill. putting it on pause just before things get a little, red. Babs apologizes, but can't let her go through with her fight with Shiva. She was an 8-year-old girl with no idea what she was doing, and after years of torturing herself, she's not the same person, and there's no reason to want to die at the lady's hands. Cassandra apologizes too, for the paralyzing nerve strike that she hits her mentor with, saying this is something she has to do even if she can't explain it. And then she leaves.
Didn't do anything. I guess we could... Well, this is a problem.
Among the city's rooftops, the two combatants meet. No standing on ceremony, no boastful declarations, they just get right to it. Cassandra does some serious damage to the roof, but against Shiva, not so much. Not sure this is what those Lego video games meant by kick some brick. Woo-san strikes her once in the scapula, and she goes down, gasping for air, as her opponent caresses her face gently, and the panels fade into an entire page of sheer white.
Well, I made a promise, and I'm going to follow through. If you want to know who I'm going after, just keep watching the news.
After a decisive punch to the same area of her chest, she awakens in unfamiliar surroundings, and offered a revitalizing tea which should do a recently dead body good.
What? Really? Well, okay, I guess. I guess no rampage then. I mean, Shiva said she did die, but I guess she restarted her heart with that punch. So she's alive. Huh. Serious mixed feelings about whether or not I hurt someone right now.
And curiously enough, she's in her Batgirl costume, which she wasn't in before, so did she have that on under her civilian clothes, or did Shiva just happen to have a spare lying around and... Well, this is going to raise too many questions. So anyway, Lady Woo-san asks what death was like, though that's admittedly difficult, so changes the question to why Batgirl wanted to die in the first place. She reveals she killed a man, and the older woman scoffing at just being one. But it was more than that. She watched him die, and her body-reading skill let her see it from his perspective. Terror. Then nothing. The karmic implications of experiencing what she inflicted make perfect sense to Shiva, and now that Cass has experienced it, she feels different.
But different in a positive way, not different for the sake of change and my life revolves around one of the worst characters ever kind of different. If that ever happens, just hit me again and don't bother with the right hook resuscitation.
As for where they are, it's a thuggy cult temple set up to worship Shiva and adorned with photographic trophies of her top kills. The thuggy that set this all up is dead, and Cass orders him revived, but that's a great big negatory. It apparently took Shiva 1 year to learn the bring back the recent dead with a punch technique, and it's a one-time deal apparently. Declaring she can't be stopped, she tosses a sword to Cassandra, who's finally deduced her plan.
Yes, it's so obvious. Kill you in one strike, revive you, show you a dead body to tick you off enough to enter into a sword fight, and then... Okay, I got nothing.
Rather than indulge in a sword fight, Cass breaks Shiva's blade, and their combat is a bit more even now. Both dodge and block each other's attacks, and though Shiva gets a good hit in, so does Cass. As she recalls Shiva's questions and she takes a couple more hits, Batgirl stops one of Shiva's punches stone cold, having arrived at an epiphany. You want to die. This whole time, Shiva has had a death wish herself, searching for it the world over, and this revelation gives our girl the upper hand to deliver a knockout strike. On the final page, they fall to the ground, in kind of a yin-yang parallel position.
I'll kill you. Not tonight.
Thus concludes our extended look at Batgirl. It remains entertaining, to say the least, and while some issues may have been a bit head-scratching at times, or perhaps didn't add much to Cassandra's continued arc, I can't say they were at all bad. For the most part, they served the purpose of getting us to this point, and as far as I'm concerned, the conclusion is very satisfactory.
From the obvious examples to the more subtle ones, like B-Girl telling a kid he's not bad just because of who his dad is, or that mother wanting her child's killer dead, even if he had changed, it all contributed to the ultimate revelation that Cass felt she deserved to die.
From a certain perspective, it might seem hypocritical that Cass, someone with a death wish, is telling a suicidal man not to jump because it's not worth it. For all she knew, he was depressed because he ran someone over, or cost a company all its money and it had to shut down, making people lose their jobs, or he shot his neighbor because they wouldn't take down their Christmas decorations. Or, possibly, she thinks if you're gonna go out, the only way to go out is fighting the world's greatest martial artist.
Because Shiva has the same ability to read body language, it makes sense that she'd pick up on this, either from their first encounter or maybe the second. It certainly explains why she perfected a technique to revive Cass just to know why she had such fatalistic tendencies. Having experienced firsthand what her victim did, Cassandra seemed at peace, still committed to her code and her mission, but perhaps not as burdened by her past.
And perhaps that's also what gave her the insight to realize Shiva also had a death wish, that revelation helping Batgirl to defeat her. She doesn't kill, but she doesn't lose.
Barbara certainly made a good point. She didn't know any better when she was a child, but remember how many times in 25 issues Cass considered words to be insufficient. This was something she had to feel because she's always been a woman of action. Maybe that's why it made sense to Batman to let the fight happen. But it's still weird he had little objection considering how he cited Jason Todd as a cautionary tale to prevent her from behaving too rashly. Though, granted, that was before she regained her visual prowess, and possibly before he and Oracle determined she had a death wish.
There's plenty more to Cassandra's story that I haven't yet reviewed, but for now we'll be leaving it here, because next week we begin looking at some DC characters reimagined by one of their competitors. Yeah, it would have made more sense last season during Year of the Crossover, but hey, what are you gonna do? I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.